Hi, it's Jay from Iridescent Tarot back with some more sparkle for you. So today I wanted to film the Midway Catch-Up 2026 tarot tag, which was started by Intuitive Whispers. But I noticed that when I was watching everyone else's awesome video responses to this tag, that there were some questions that were more of like evergreen questions, like things that really wouldn't necessarily be changing all that frequently for me, like favorite crystals, jewelry, what's my soul deck, that kind of thing. And so I've really kind of adapted this tag to be more ephemeral. So just including things that are like of the moment of, middle of the year, 2026. Like what are the things that I'm thinking about, decks that I'm using, that kind of thing. And less about some of the more evergreen favorite type things that you might know just from watching other videos. So starting with prompt number 1, what has been your go-to deck in 2026? I've kind of interpreted this as most used deck of 2026, and that's a tough one for me because I'm very fickle when it comes to my decks. So decks come in, decks go out, I will use a deck for a few months and then move on. And I don't know, I think that for this year, it's possible that I've used this deck right here, Mellow schema, the most out of any of my decks this year. And that would be thanks in large part to Animals and Arcana's My Deck Companion workbook, because there is like a month-long practice to really deep dive and get to know one particular deck throughout that process. And I've gotten through 3 weeks out of the 4 that are in that workbook, and it's taken me 2 months to do that. There's so much great content in there. I can't recommend it highly enough, but that's, probably a large reason why I've spent so much time with this deck is because I've really gotten to know it well, via all the different exercises that I've gone through, throughout that workbook. So I think even though like beginning of the year, I used Yukika Tarot a ton, and there's definitely been other decks that I've used a lot this year. I would think that it's possible that Mellow schema is the most used at this point. Prompt 2, the most recent deck that you acquired, that would be the Earthchild Tarot. I'm not sure whether this video or my July favorites will go up first, but I talk about this in that video as well. I was just really craving more of Allison Davies' artwork after working with the Blue Earth Tarot a lot last year. And I just wanted something that was like a little bit more lighthearted, something that would be kind of appropriate seasonally, because Blue Earth Tarot is very heavy, dense, emotive, and this is a little bit more lighthearted, whimsical, fresh with the color palette. And so this is exactly what I was hoping it would be like. I do think that it's a very off the beaten path with some of its cards, and that doesn't really bother me, but it would be important to know going in if somebody was like really, just straight up strict RWS reader, then this might throw you for a loop with some of the cards here, but I'm really enjoying working with it so far. And look at those backs. I mean, I love them. So this is my most recent deck acquisition and the one that I'm like loving right now. All right, so we're skipping from prompt 2 to prompt 8, which is what deck has been a hug deck or a deck that brings you comfort this year? And that would be the Future Ancestor Tarot. I don't know if I think that there are really any tarot decks that are straight up hug decks, okay? Because no matter what deck you use, you're going to have some of the more challenging cards. You're going to have the Tower. You're going to have the Death. You're going to have Ten of Swords. You're going to have those more difficult cards. And if I truly want a hug deck, it's going to be an Oracle deck that doesn't have that kind of like level of challenging confrontation in it. But I will say that if I want a tarot deck that is as close to a hug deck as I can get with those things, then it is definitely the Future Ancestor Tarot. I will also say that grandma looking deck from Doreen Virtue, the Angel Guardian something or other, the one that looks like your grandma's nightgown, that deck also functions as a pretty hug deck of a tarot. The little descriptions on the cards and things are all very like light and whatnot. But I think that this deck is just very, like it holds space for me in a way that's like, I see you, I feel you, you can feel your feelings, and that's okay. And I think that comes through stronger in this tarot than, you know, many of my other decks. So if I had to pick like a tarot that's a hug deck, I would pick this deck. I guess the prompt said pick a deck, so I went tarot, even though I guess I could have gone oracle, but yeah, I think it's a little bit more difficult to find a hug deck that's a tarot than an oracle. Prompt number 11, what new 2026 deck release are you most excited for? I mean, how could I not choose my own deck? I'm sorry. But this is the deck that I'm most excited about. And I think that if you make your own decks, like, you understand that you're going to be the most excited about your own deck coming out that year. Like, it just is what it is. But even if I hadn't created this deck and it was like on the docket to be released, I would be super excited about this because I've been waiting for somebody to create an impressionist curated art deck. And so after taking matters into my own hands and making this, I just feel like it's finally that deck that I've been waiting for to come out. And there are still miles left to go to get the final order in hand, but I couldn't be happier with the way that this is progressing. Prompt 13 is a great tarot book you read or would recommend this year. And I picked Tarot for Change because I didn't read this book until this year, and I really, really liked it. Even though I tend to stay away from books now that kind of go through card by card because I don't really feel like I need that now. I need more of like discussion of other like frameworks and things that are a little bit more less in the, you know, in the trees and more like forest for the trees. You know what I'm trying to say? Anyways, this is very much the way and style that I read tarot for myself. And so this was my favorite tarot book of the year so far. So much so that I had listened to it on like audiobook and then purchased the hardcover because I loved it that much. Question 15 is, what are some of your goals for your channel moving forward in 2026? I don't know, like, just to be here, bro. Like, I feel like Tarot, Monet, and Me takes up so much of my mind share, and my time and effort, like, is all going into that. And so there's not a lot left over of juice to make videos right now. And that's okay. Like, we're all going to go through these waxes and wanes and phases when it comes to like consuming and making content and whatnot. Right now, my priority is getting that deck to a point where I can get the order in hand and out the door. And like, that's what I'm thinking about right now. Beyond that, TarotTube is a place that I came to for connection, and like I feel like I get that on a daily basis via like watching everyone's videos, commenting, engaging with people that leave comments in my channel. Like, I already get everything that I want out of having a YouTube channel, which is being able to share in this passion that we all have of the cards with you. So like, I feel like I'm already accomplishing my goal, being here and being present with you. Yeah. Okay. So those were the questions that I wanted to answer from this year's Midway Catch-Up 2026. However, I will say last year I did the hashtag mid-year tarot tag, and I went back to that video and looked to see if there were any questions that I wanted to like revisit now a year later and see what my answers were. So I'm going to answer a few of those now. Number 4 from last year is deck you're currently using, and that would be, I mean, I'm using like all of my decks now. Like, any of the ones that you've seen recently are like ones that are in rotation. But lately, and I don't know how I forgot this in my July wrap up, so I'll just have to include it in my next wrap up. But the Homebound tarot has been a joy for me this month. I feel like it's similar in peaceful vibe to Mellow schema, but then you have these figures. So whereas Mellow schema doesn't have any figures, you just have like shapes. This has a figure, but the figure doesn't have like any discernible features. You can't tell what they look like, but you can tell from body posture, like what the emotion is that's happening. And I love that. So this deck feels very yoga-y to me. It feels very peaceful, being on like a meditation retreat, silent retreat, a spa, a massage, like all of these really quiet, peaceful things. This deck brings me to that place in my practice. And so because I've been really heavily leaning into that vibe with Mellow schema and the practice that I have with it with this book, I feel like that kind of just spills over, and I just really want to work with like nice peaceful decks too at other times, and not just before bed when I do my Mellow schema practice. So I have loved this deck, and I'm like so surprised that I forgot to mention it in my wrap up. So here's a little bit of love for it right here. 5 is biggest surprise. That would be the Livett the Ghost Tarot. I don't know why, but I feel like this deck is surprising to me. I can't really put my finger on it. It's like a little bit creepy but cute, and it's very pippy, which I guess is surprising because I used to not be a pip deck person, but now I'm totally a pip deck person. This is my favorite card. This was a deck that I, contrary to my usual MO of like hemming and hawing about a deck, like I saw this on Mariana's channel and I was like try to hunt this down, and like I didn't think hard about how this would fit into my life and my practice. I had to have it, and it was surprisingly good for like not putting in all that much thought into it. It is like, somewhat challenging of a reader. Like I would definitely not recommend this deck for beginners in any way, shape, or form. But for me, it's been a surprisingly fun one. I did all of the exercises in Tom Benjamin's Tarot on Earth with this deck, and so that kind of like helped me form a really nice connection with it. And yeah, I think it's just so fun and different. It was definitely a surprise. My deck crush is the Lighted Window Tarot, and this is the opposite of Livett the Ghost, where I did sit on this deck for a really long time. I can't remember how long it's been out, but about however long it's been out was how long I hemmed and hawed about this deck. And I just crushed on it from afar. Anytime anyone would show it on their channel, I'd be like, oh my God, I love everything about that. And I had convinced myself not to buy it because of the digital artwork and because it was a pip deck. And honestly, those things don't bother me now. So I'm glad that I waited to buy this until I was in a place where I could appreciate those things about it. But yeah, this had been a long-standing crush, and it's like, we're going on a date. You know what I mean? Like, you were my crush, but now we're together, so. Number 7 is a favorite single tarot card from a deck. And I found that my favorite card is very similar in 2 different decks. And I want you to try to envision what it is. Even if you don't know the card title, like you could describe it in the comments and it'll be fun to see. But this is like essentially the same card from 2 different decks that I love so much. And I got this Yukika tarot first, which has this curled up unicorn and a girl who's got the butterfly and the rainbow, and it's just so sparkly and beautiful. And then the star card from the Daydream tarot is so similar, where you've got the curled up animals and like I feel like they really reflect each other. And I love both of these so much. I would decorate my house in this kind of imagery. Like I love this. It's so beautiful. Anyways, I thought they were really similar and I thought it was kind of funny. So number 10, kind of similar to number 11 from the last one, but what deck do you want by the end of the year, or are you still waiting on? And that's the Oh My Heart Oracle by Marian Constantine. I am so excited for this deck. It is the 3rd deck that she's created, her first 2 being Lillifer Tarot and Reclaim Oracle, and I use those decks in such a specialized way in my practice. I love those decks hard, like I love them. And so I was so thrilled when she announced that she was creating another oracle deck. I think it's more of a general oracle, so I'm gonna have to see how it fits into my practice, but it's got holographic foiling and everything, so I'm so excited about that. Question 11, which deck hasn't been used yet, or barely, but you want to work with this year? And that would be Many Queens Tarot. I also talked about this deck in my July wrap up, but I essentially purchased this deck because I loved the Listening Oracle so much, and it's created by the same artist. And I have been using these in a very specialized practice to speak with my inner artist. And that was inspired by Nancy at Hidden Magic Tarot. While these decks are both recently new to my collection. I'm really looking forward to diving in more with them and use them to communicate with my creative side and work with that side, because it's something that has been bringing me so much joy the last couple of years. Number 12, favorite video you've made or seen. And I'm going to just go with the wobble readings from Mindful Tarot, because I've been reading her book Mindful Tarot right now. And sometimes I'll just like be reading it and getting in the mood of wanting to hear more about what Lisa or Esther Frankel-Tishman has to say. And so I'll just go back and watch old wobble readings that she has posted on her channel just to like hear her insightful thoughts about cards. And so she'll pull, it took me a really long time to fully grasp, like truly feel into what a wobble reading is, but essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're watching right now, let me know. She'll pull 2 cards and she'll talk about the tension between the 2 cards, like between Strength and the 10 of Wands. There's a limniscate, and she wants to really target like this really good question in between those 2 things, and we'll pull a 3rd card to be like that pinpoint grounding, anchoring force between them. So that's kind of how she works those readings, and I just love hearing the way that she interprets the cards. And it's very much the way that I interpret cards, kind of bringing in this mindfulness. She's a Zen Buddhist teacher, and so that's kind of like what I'm interested in when I'm working with the Mellow schema tarot, and it just kind of wraps up all these different things that I'm interested in one kind of reading. So I've been enjoying her wobble readings. All right, the last question, 13, is pull a card for the next 6 months, or pick a card whose energy you want to bring into the next 6 months. And I talked about this last year, but I was like, I'm not pulling a tarot card to predict 6 months, because what if I pull a bad card? And that's true. Like, I don't care what anyone says about good cards, bad cards, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to pull the Tower and live in like that for the next 6 months. So I'm going to pull from the Witch Kittens, because there's really no bad cards here. So let's see what we get for the next 6 months. What's a word that I should focus on? Let's see here. Clarity. Piercing through fear and doubt, I tune in to what I know to be true. I focus on this seed of clarity, no matter how small, and trust that its crystal light will grow, burning away the fog of confusion, illuminating my path. What is one thing I am completely clear about right now? She's beautiful. Okay. All right, so that was my Midway catch up. I hope that you enjoyed chatting about these Midway things with me. I like these because I like to compare, last year's to this year's, and then hopefully next year's to this year's, and see how it goes. And sweet surprise. I hope that you have a sweet surprise today. Only sweet ones. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all the things, and I will talk to you later. Signing out.